also can talk Yonko too again next week if we want. I mean, we can do this for a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll probably have to,
Yeah,
but but this is fun. It's fun to finally be able to
yeah.
actually like talk about it.
It's a couple of months of what are you building up there? What is
Yeah.
your concepts?
Mhm. Um, well, yeah, it is interesting because like I think that for me, like, well, okay, so some of the questions that you were asking just about how it related to part one, a lot of this is kind of abstract, because it's not, we've never really talked about like a specific story or lore, but I think both of us have our own lore, and I'm sure that they they're probably like two different spheres, but they overlap. You know, is kind of what I'm guessing. Um, and I definitely like I saw a lot more characters in this one. With this one I started to uh I think also like what I was doing was I was using a lot of the same sounds and the same palette. Like I have the soundscape and the sound palette that
Mhm.
I'm working from. Um but uh it started to take a little different direction musically. But I was also trying to um bring back some of the sounds. But the characters that I was mentioning, like sometimes I would try to uh create these pieces specifically for characters that I was seeing in
Mhm.
the artwork. And I don't know if I don't know how well. What was your thought with the characters? Like, were they intentional, or were you introducing new characters, or is that
I mean,
something that I
by
was
the
just
end, I
imagining?
had a character that I liked making, and I just kept making these, and like it's funny because uh, I had some rules for Yonko too that I end up breaking, but that's interesting. Um, so I view
Hmm.
Yonko one for me, not Yonko, excuse me, Zodiac one uh, is the story is a private detective in a noir in a very much a city goes is in a hotel and he finds a decapitated hand and he goes to talk to someone about it. He goes to talk to the hotel owner about it or the bellboy about it.
Hmm.
And the bellboy tells a story about an invasion that happens and then by the time we get back the invasion is already done. And then there's some deep space stuff that happens in it. And that's sort of what
Hmm.
Zodiac 1 has was about in my head. It was very much
Hmm.
about an invasion. And there was a
Yeah.
noir angle. And if you ever want to note the eye symbol in a triangle, well, the eye symbol is how to note where the detective is. That's how you know
Hmm.
who that character is. Except like if it's above his head, or like if it's above his head, if it's on them, it's not that. But if it's above his head, you know that that's the detective. So that's
Hmm.
how I noted it. But it's sort of this weird invasion angle, and then it ends in the hallway with sort of this bust staring at a door
Hmm.
that says "dead," and that's where Zodiac One ends. Then
Hmm.
Zodiac Two starts with a close up on the bust, right? So
Hmm.
that's how Zodiac Two starts, and then I had some rules. The rules were I did so many eyes in Yonko One that I wouldn't do it in the eye. Like so that's epilogue for the beginning, the first image sort of follows under the rule set of two, right? A rule set of one. But rule set
Right.
two is I
Okay.
wasn't going to do any eyes until I had to. So you see me like
Gotcha.
evolve eyes, and I wanted to do more of a pastoral scenes. I wanted to do more.
Hmm.
You going? You gonna head out? Okay. I'll open the door in a sec. Um, I wanted to do more pastoral scenes, and I wanted to do um, it was I called it in my head, and I never told you this, but if you look at it, you'll see it's Yonko 2
Yeah.
water levels. Um,
Hmm.
so there's sort of a second story that's happening that doesn't that the first story is interrupting every once in a while, but
Hmm.
is about this pastoral area where these monks that are doing some sort of spell. Like it's a spell of how this is deeply it's almost embarrassing to talk about because
Mhm.
how much I'm just like it's a sequel that's also a prequel. So it's how
Uh-huh.
the invasion started was these monks, but it also happens after the events of the first one.
Gotcha.
And they're doing if you look at it like some sort of spell happens, but also like images, also the dot returns, but that's a big return. If you look at there are images that come back in two that
Mhm.
wanted to illuminate that come back that I wanted to illuminate part one if you're paying attention throughout. Uh,
Mhm.
but like I'll also say the skeleton piece that is one of my favorites in there
Mhm. Mhm.
is just a
Oh,
close what?
no, I wanna see if I can find it. So go ahead, talk about it, yeah.
So I've done all this water level, and then in my head, and this is just playing in my own head and just telling people about it. Uh, it's a close up of what the I think we had just talked about that day what the Yonko LLC sort of the character
Yeah.
that is there is.
Is it,
So,
is it this
yeah,
one?
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Um, which I think is very different than a lot of stuff in
Yeah.
comparison. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I wanted to make a motivational poster for that, like what the Yonko LLC, because you were talking about the broken sort of language it uses, and that's
Yeah.
this, and it's what they think is a motivational poster.
Gotcha, okay.
So, also, one of the things that happened, and I think I recovered, is the editing system I used made some major changes. So, like, I had to relearn a lot
Uh,
of it. So you see, instead of like the
mhm.
complexity some of it will have and did have, I had to lower it a little bit because I just couldn't figure out this new how my editing system had changed. Uh, but I also
Yeah.
think
Mhm.
like you see, I also this is so I broke the no eye rule on purpose a handful of times, right? Um,
Mhm.
and I broke it once, and I broke it on the final image, and I broke it on a hand image on purpose. But um,
Mhm.
thinking, I'm sorry. That's this image has a rule that I have right now, like a big rule, which is no skulls. I have no skulls in my work just because it's so
Mm.
overdone. It's my no white, red, black rule. Uh,
Gotcha.
same basic idea. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's why it's framed like that because I desperately just didn't want to make skulls anymore. So
Uh-huh.
that's the in world. That's the motivational poster of a Yonko. But there's a lot of like, if you look at it, I just kept making underwater scenes because I wanted to see what would happen if I kept sending you underwater scenes.
Yeah, and a few of those, especially at the beginning, we had this kind of underwater, and I could tell, I felt like that was sort of, like the first, maybe
Mhm.
third of it, it felt very very underwater to me. Yeah, and I feel like that I was kind of responding, and we were responding to each other, with the underwater sounds and underwater, visuals, I think. Um, and I could, even again, like, even though we weren't talking about it, like, that was one of the things that I felt like it was sort of, like, connecting, with all the there was also, like, speaking of the
Mhm.
skeleton, um, there was this one that, oh, yeah, here it is. I so for a lot of the stuff that I write, I really try to, um,
Mm.
I try to, just create more, um I try to sort of stay away from stuff that I've done in my past,
Mhm.
like pre-Yonko, basically. Um, that so I try to just, like, develop new sounds for myself. Like, I'm not saying I'm like an original artist or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, for myself, like, I try to stay away from things that I've done in the past. But for this one, I just couldn't resist. It just felt like, this sort of
Mhm.
Reaper,
Absolutely.
uh, and and I like the traditionally like cliche Reaper like sounds that you would expect, like kind of heavy metal Reapers. And so I just had to go with it for this one. Like, and that's something, I mean, I when I was younger, I played like metal bands and stuff like that. I know I felt like that was just like an echo from my past that I just had to address with this one.
So
So
I also think that's interesting because that's the first, and it's not on purpose. So things that I find interesting about this image, I think this one's fun.
yeah.
In both Yonkos, which I try to pull images from, there's pictures of screens on purpose. Yonko one has pictures
Uh,
of screens, and this has pictures of screens. I don't yet, and there's stuff I don't know why we do yet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, as we'll go, I
yeah.
guess we'll figure it more out. I also consider this the first. There's a character. There's a set of characters or a sect that sort of appears towards the back end of this that I was terrified to keep
Uh-huh.
sending you these. I want to be very clear. Um, the last probably 8 to 9 images is an exploration of like this sort of character. Can you pull up? I don't want the final image or
Okay.
too far back, but like, can you pull up the one where
Yeah.
it's the two dudes in a robes in red robes holding a cup?
Yeah, I think it's
I think this is probably what I
I think
want
it's
to.
this
Did
one
you
you're talking.
you knew those were a recurring character? Like you could tell, right? Oh no, not that one. That one's okay, but
Yeah. Not that
that's
one.
okay. Because it's funny because
Yeah.
I end up, that's an interesting one because I was so frustrated with it. And for so long, I'm fine with it now, but I just had to keep like that thing's so heavy because I was so mad at it for so long.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but sort of these characters appeared and they wear hoods and they have blue noses and their hands are all
Yeah.
tattooed and their feet are all tattooed. And that was like
Hmm.
a major character. Did you see them? Did you not see them? What did you think of them?
Yeah, no, I definitely saw it, and that's what I like. I was kind of afraid, like as we were getting to the end, because I started bringing back some of the sounds from Zodiac One
Uh-huh.
towards the end, and I was kind of afraid to uh I was afraid that that wasn't I wasn't sure if that was the right way to go or not, but
Mm,
again, like, one of the rules I think that one of the unspoken rules is, like, once you put something out there, then you can't take it back, right?
yeah, which
And
I did kinda sort of break, but
yeah. But,
can you tell the
and
difference
so I
between images? Did you look at the differences between those 2 images?
I didn't look at it closely, yeah.
Okay, so there was just so you know, because I wanna tell you this, there was a tiny you could only see it in a line that was, like, hair
Yeah.
thin that was white, and it only looks like a mistake. You know what I mean? And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's something that's just me being slightly, disaligned." So I felt like
Yeah. I
that
mean
is an acceptable, especially because like, last images we get a little weird on. Last songs we get a little weird on.
yeah, exactly, and I don't think that really counts for what we're talking about because even when I send stuff to our mixing guy, then when I get it back, like, there's
Mm,
little adjustments like that, that you're talking about that I
yeah,
make on the music end. But it doesn't change the scope of it. Like the stuff that I changed, it
yeah.
wouldn't have changed your
Same
image, I don't
same
think, and like just like that
same idea,
line,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but but it was interesting because I felt like the middle of this one started to take kind of a different musically, it started to take an entirely different sound. Um, and that's why, like, towards the end, I was kind of afraid, like, am I going back
Mhm.
to too much of what's happening in Zodiac 1? And I wasn't sure if that was the right way to do, but then I felt like the images themselves, like,
Mhm.
kept getting darker as well. So I was like, okay, well, yeah. I mean, I just felt like the flow was happening, that way. But I felt like the middle part was a little bit lighter, quite a bit lighter, I think, for
I
Zodiac
agree,
1.
and I think it was I think it was very purposeful. I actually consider that I this is just my own thinking. Consider that lightness sort of leaving because I think the middle of Zodiac,
Mhm.
the beginning to middle of Zodiac one is about disassociating because I was very much like
Mhm.
was not in my I was not here for a while. Like I was here, obviously, not full disassociation, but like the world was in
Yeah,
such a place where I was just like, I'm just gonna make happy places. And I think the arc of
exactly.
Zodiac is